I tried to keep my parents from pouring every cent into my brother's sketchy startup, but they laughed and called me simply jealous. When they went broke and asked me for money, I refused and walked away. So, yeah, I'm Killian, 28, and I fix AC units for a living. It's not glamorous, believe me. Long hours, crawling through dusty attics and freezing basements. It's dirty, it's hard, but it pays the bills. My family, though? That's where things get really messy. See, I have a younger brother, Vincent. He's 25, the ultimate golden child. Always has been. Good looks, those tech genius vibes, and parents who genuinely believed the sun shone out of his butt. And me? I was just there. The backup kid, the afterthought. I still remember being 10. Vincent was 6. We both wanted this new video game system. I'd been busting my ass, doing chores for months, saving every single penny. Then, one day, Vincent walks in, throws a fake tantrum to Mom about some kid at school bragging. And, just like that, the very next day, there's a brand new console in his room. When I asked about mine, Dad just shrugged and said, maybe save up a bit more, sport. Vincent shot me the smug, little smile right behind their backs. The little jerk knew exactly what he was doing, even then. It just kept happening. In high school, I needed $50 for a field trip. Dad gave me a whole lecture about financial responsibility and made me mow lawns to earn it. That same week, Vincent casually mentioned wanting a new laptop for coding. Boom. $1,200 MacBook, no questions asked. When I dared to point out the blatant favoritism, Mom just said, Vince is using it for his future. Your field trip is just for fun. Yeah, it was a science museum. Not exactly a party, but whatever. My buddy at work, Bob, he gets it. We were grabbing lunch yesterday after fixing this commercial system nightmare at a law firm. 8 hours of diagnostics for what turned out to be a dead squirrel in the ductwork. Lawyers were losing their minds because their precious filing room was 82 degrees. Bob's showing me pictures of this poor crispy squirrel when I get another text from Mom about Vincent's latest achievement. Dude, Bob says, shoving half a burrito in his mouth, your family's more toxic than that black mold we found at the Jensen job. He wasn't wrong. Honestly, some of the stuff we see on the job. Last week, I got called to this fancy house where the lady complained her AC was screaming. I'm thinking bearing issue, maybe a belt. Nope. She'd been using her return vent as a mail slot. 3 months of bills, catalogs, and coupons just sitting there, blocking airflow. I charged her the standard rate, plus what Bob calls the people are idiots tax. Family dinners? Basically torture. Vincent would go on and on about his latest promotion, his business trips, some app that's revolutionizing the industry, or whatever. Mom would hang on every single word like he was Jesus himself. Dad just sat there, nodding with this proud grin, probably already spending Vincent's imaginary millions in his head. Then there was me. I'd try to talk about my day, and Dad would cut me off, so, Killian, graduated to changing filters yet? Cue the laugh track. Mom's fake giggle, Vincent's smug chuckle, Dad's full belly laugh. Message received, loud and clear. Killian, the HVAC guy, was the family joke. I remember my senior year of high school, during career day. I mentioned being interested in HVAC. Good money, always in demand. Dad laughed so hard he choked on his coffee. Well, somebody's got to do it, I guess. The same year, Vincent, just a freshman, mentioned maybe getting into programming. Dad immediately bought him coding books and a brand new desktop, telling everyone his son was the next Bill Gates. The contrast was just illuminating. Vincent never missed an opportunity to rub it in. Must be real fulfilling, he'd always add, spending your days unclogging other people's AC units. Really changing the world there, bro. Then he'd casually mention his stock options while Mom practically drooled over him. I just sat there, forced a smile, pushed food around my plate, and counted the minutes until I could escape. Making a scene isn't my style, so I just took their nonsense year after year, the family punching bag. My apartment isn't anything special. 1 bedroom, mismatched furniture, a fridge that makes weird noises, but it's mine. No judgment, no comparisons to Golden Boy Vincent. Vincent actually stopped by once, looked around like he was at a zoo. Wow, Killian, real cozy. This is what HVAC money gets you, huh? Guess I'll keep writing code. He laughed and spent the next hour bragging about his downtown loft. I wanted to punch him in the throat. Not gonna lie. Lately, I'd been noticing weird stuff about Vincent's company. Nothing major, just little things. His stories didn't quite add up. He'd mention his team, how big it was, but then slip and say they were understaffed. Or brag about their fancy office, but dodge when mom asked to visit. I started seeing articles online too, tech blogs questioning their growth numbers, former employees leaving suspicious reviews. Bob thought I was overthinking it. All tech bros are full of it, he'd say, part of the job description, maybe. But something felt off. Last Christmas, Vincent gave everyone company swag, t-shirts, water bottles, all with his startup's logo. Dad wore his shirt to the gym the next day, already telling his buddies about his son's company that was about to blow up. Mom put their sticker on her car. Me? I used the water bottle for work. It leaked everywhere day one. Seemed fitting somehow. Yesterday, I was fixing the AC at a finance office downtown. Overheard these guys talking about overvalued tech startups and houses of cards waiting to collapse. One mentioned Vincent's company specifically, saying their numbers don't pass the smell test. I just kept working, pretended not to hear, but it stuck with me. Maybe karma was finally knocking. But guys like Vincent always land on their feet, right? Last summer was brutal. Record heat wave. Every AC in town working overtime, which meant I was too. 2 60-hour weeks crawling through attics hot enough to cook on, running on Red Bull and Spite. By Friday, I had this one client, a total Karen, who insisted her AC wasn't cooling properly, despite the display reading 68 degrees. I checked everything. System perfect. Finally, I noticed she's got blackout curtains and a space heater running in the corner. A space heater during a heat wave. When I pointed it out, she goes, well, I get cold feet, but I like the room cool. I charged her the full diagnostic fee and left before I said something I'd regret. The last thing I wanted was another family dinner. But mom kept blowing up my phone all week. Vincent has big news. Every text had that exact phrase, capitals and everything. So I dragged my tired self over after my last job, barely had time to shower. I walk in and there's Vincent, sprawled on the sofa, designer jacket tossed beside him like it's nothing, probably cost more than my monthly rent. He barely looks up from his phone. Hey, Killian, finally get promoted to thermostat installer yet? Mom does her nervous laugh from the kitchen. Dad straight up chuckles like it's comedy gold. This nonsense started when we were kids. My 16th birthday, all I wanted was tickets to see this band. Instead, I got socks and a Walmart gift card. Vincent's 16th? Dad gives him a car. He's showing real potential, Dad explained, like I was too stupid to understand why they treated us differently. I grabbed a drink, headed to the kitchen. Mom's making Vincent's favorites. Not a buffalo wing in sight, even though she knows I love them. Classic Killian. Honey, you look tired, she says, not actually looking at me. Vincent's got big news today. Try to be happy for him. Okay, sure. Vincent has news. Shocker. Dinner starts. Vincent's going on about his latest promotion, waving his fancy smartwatch around. CEO loved my proposal. Youngest team lead ever. Might get a corner office next month. Mom's practically orgasmic with pride. That's wonderful, sweetie. Isn't that wonderful, honey? Dad nods proudly. That's my boy. Always knew you'd make it big. So, I try my luck. Actually, I got promoted to senior technician last week. Awkward pause. Dad barely looks up. Wow, Killian. Fixing slightly bigger air conditioners. What a milestone. Then they all laugh. Even Vincent, with this fake sympathy look that made me want to flip the table. Hey, not everyone can code, right? Vincent adds. Someone's got to do the grunt work, though. Honestly, bro, you smell like you've been rolling around inside those dusty units all day. Ever heard of deodorant? I had a flashback to last week, stuck in an attic in 120-degree heat, fixing an evaporator coil while the homeowner kept yelling up, "Is it fixed yet? My electric bill better not go up." Meanwhile, Vincent sits in air-conditioned comfort all day, probably browsing Reddit instead of working. But he's the success story. Mom tuts. Vincent, be nice. Killian works with his hands. She says it like I clean toilets with them. Yeah, Killian's job is important, Dad says with a smirk. Without him, who would we call when the AC breaks, though? At the rates you guys charge, maybe you should be driving something better than that rusted truck. My truck's a 2010 F-150. Not new, but reliable. Paid off 3 years ago. Meanwhile, I know for a fact Vincent's luxury apartment costs more than he makes. Saw him checking his banking app once. Negative balance. But sure, my truck's the problem. Something in me just snapped. Not rage, more like a quiet screw this moment. Like when you're trying to loosen a rusted bolt and it finally gives way. So, I put my fork down, stand up, and look Vincent right in the eye. Enjoy your fantasy while it lasts. The truth always catches up. Then, to Dad, and for your information, Dad, that rusted truck is paid for. Can't say that about all your fancy stuff, can you? Dead silence. Vincent's smug look slipped just for a second. Then I walked out without another word. First time I'd ever stood up to them. The look on their faces was worth every second of that awkward dinner. I got in my truck and just sat there for a minute. My phone started blowing up immediately. I ignored it. Called Eden instead. Hey, how'd it go? She asks. Just walked out on family dinner, I tell her. Feels amazing. About time, she laughs. Want to come over and tell me all about it? The next few weeks, I buried myself in work. Extra shifts, toughest jobs, whatever. Mom left voicemails about my attitude problem and how I ruined dinner. Delete without listening. Dad texted once, your mother is upset. Call her. Yeah. No. Bob was loving the overtime. His girlfriend was pregnant, so he was banking every hour he could. We took on this massive strip mall job. 10 rooftop units, all neglected for years. Climbing up and down ladders all day in 95-degree heat. We found everything from dead birds to a fully intact wasp nest the size of a basketball. Bob took a picture of me holding it with barbecue tongs, captions it, "New family less toxic than his real one," and sends it to Eden. She makes it her phone background. But then I started noticing more weird stuff in local business news about Vincent's company. Employee complaints, financial issues, growth numbers not adding up. Nothing major at first, just little red flags. A buddy from high school who works in tech sent me a link to an industry forum thread about overvalued startups to avoid. Vincent's company was number 3 on the list. The post mentioned high turnover, missed deadlines, and creative accounting. I thought about forwarding it to my parents, but decided against it. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I remembered when Vincent was 14 and borrowed Dad's credit card for some online game purchases, racked up $800. I got blamed first because I was older. When they finally figured out it was Vincent, he cried and said he didn't understand how online payments worked. They grounded him for a weekend. When I was 14 and came home an hour past curfew, I lost car privileges for a month. Different rules always applied. Eden and I were getting pretty serious. She stays over most nights. Her place has roommates and mine's quieter. One night, we're making dinner and she asks about Vincent. I tell her what I've been seeing online. Sounds like a house of cards, she says, chopping vegetables. People like that always crash eventually. Eden's dad owns a plumbing business, so she gets the trades. Life respects it. Huge change from my family's attitude. Then boom. Tuesday morning, I'm checking my phone between jobs, and there it is. Vincent's company folded overnight. CEO and executives under investigation for fraud, fake earnings reports, fake investment numbers, fake everything. And there's Vincent, in a grainy picture, being escorted out, jacket over his face, hiding from reporters. Not gonna lie, part of me felt vindicated. All those years of Vincent the genius and Killian the disappointment. And it turns out, Golden Boy was nothing but spray paint all along. Later that day, my phone blew up. Mom, Dad, Vincent. I ignored them all. Finished my day. I was weirdly calm. Checked voicemails that night. Total panic fest. Mom's crying. Dad's demanding I call back. Vincent sounds broken. Weird how fast they remembered my number once they needed something. I called Dad the next morning. The conversation went exactly like you'd expect. He drops the bomb. They tied their entire future to Vincent's nonsense. Refinanced their paid-off house to invest in his startup. Dad took early retirement thinking they'd be set for life on Vincent's imaginary millions. Now they're facing foreclosure and debt collectors. All because they bet everything on Golden Boy. When he asks for money, I actually laugh. Can't help it. I remind him what HVAC guys make, the ones he's been mocking for years. Not enough to save their house. I remembered when I was 17, needed $2,000 for technical school application and supplies. Dad said they couldn't help. Money was tight. Found out later they'd just given Vincent $5,000 for a coding boot camp he quit after 2 weeks. But money was tight. Bob met me for lunch after I talked to Dad, and I told him everything. He just shakes his head. Man, I thought my family was dysfunctional. Orders an extra plate of nachos. Says stress eating is mandatory in these situations. Meanwhile, more details about Vincent's company kept emerging. Turns out they never had a real product, just fancy presentations and nonsense projections. Classic Silicon Valley vaporware. Vincent had been a low-level developer, not a team lead. Everything was a lie. That weekend, I'm working an emergency call at a church. Their AC died right before Sunday service. The pastor keeps saying, "The Lord works in mysterious ways." Yeah, buddy. So do 30-year-old condensers when they're not maintained. While I'm waiting for a part, I scroll through my family's increasingly desperate messages. Mom tries guilt, after all we've done for you. Dad tries demands, this is what family is for. Vincent just begs. Classic. Same roles as always. I block all their numbers. For the first time in my life, I felt completely free. Eden gets it, though. Her brother was the golden child, too. Some families are toxic, she says. Sometimes distance is the only healthy option. A month passes. Life settles into a new normal. Work, home, Eden. Repeat. It's peaceful without my family's constant judgment. Things with Eden are good. She's practically moved in at this point. Her kindergarten classroom stories somehow make my weird HVAC encounters seem normal. Last week, she had a kid eat a crayon, then puke all over the reading corner. Made my day of fixing a restaurant's walk-in freezer seem downright boring. Then Vincent shows up. On a Sunday morning. No warning, no text, just there. I almost don't recognize him. The designer clothes are gone. Same as the perfect hair and smug smile. This Vincent looks rough. Wrinkled khakis, plain t-shirt, dark circles under his eyes, stubble. Could pass for a homeless guy if you didn't look too close. I let him in against my better judgment. My place isn't fancy, but it's clean and paid for, unlike wherever he's staying, I bet. He paces around nervously before collapsing on my couch. Launches into this whole confession. He was never as successful as he claimed. Started exaggerating years ago to impress Mom and Dad. The lie got bigger and bigger. Got caught up in the startup's fraud because he was desperate to make his lies real. Convinced Mom and Dad to invest their retirement on promises he knew were nonsense. The irony hit me like a truck. All these years feeling worthless next to him, and he was just living in a fantasy world. Reminds me of what my first HVAC instructor told us, in this job, you can't fake it. A system either works or it doesn't. No amount of nonsense changes physics. Wish someone had told Vincent that about business. Then Vincent gets to the real reason for his visit. Some crypto scheme he's convinced will fix everything. Mom and Dad are already on board, investing what little they have left. Jesus Christ. Are you seriously fixing things with another scam? I ask. It's unbelievable. After everything, they're still following Vincent off another cliff. Like that time in high school when Vincent convinced Dad to invest in his friend's revolutionary car detailing business. Dad lost $5,000. But somehow it wasn't Vincent's fault because he was showing entrepreneurial spirit. I tell Vincent exactly how stupid this sounds. He leaves, shoulders slumped. This defeated version of Vincent is so different from the brother I grew up with. I call my parents that night, trying to talk sense into them. Mom confirms they're rebetting what little they have left on Vincent's new opportunity. Of course they are. They'll never learn. Eden watches me pace around the apartment after the call. Points out that I can't save people who don't want saving. Says, my parents are adults making their own choices, bad ones, but still their choices. She's right, but it still bothers me. Not because I care about their money, but because the pattern is so frustratingly familiar. Vincent screws up. They enable him. Repeat forever. Later, Bob and I are working a commercial job. 8 units on a shopping center roof in direct sun, basically cooking ourselves. Halfway through, I get a text from Vincent with a screenshot of his crypto whatever, showing some temporary upward trend. See, it's working. I ignore it. I remember when we were kids and Vincent would cheat at board games. When caught, he'd cry until my parents let him redo his turn. Different rules always applied. This crypto thing feels like the same old pattern, just with higher stakes. Eden starts researching crypto scams that night. Shows me dozens of identical schemes. It's always the same formula, she says. Promise massive returns, create fake urgency, target desperate people. Textbook stuff. I text Vincent back, telling him it's a scam. He responds with some technical jargon that makes zero sense. Classic Vincent move when cornered, confuse people with big words. Used to pull that crap in high school debates. Teachers ate it up. 2 weeks later, Bob's cousin, who works at a bank, texts him about my parents trying to take out a high-interest loan against their car. Word travels fast in small towns. They're all in on Vincent's scheme, apparently. A last-ditch effort. I email them links to articles about crypto scams. Dad replies with one word, noted. Translation, piss off, we're not listening. Another week passes. I'm under some rich guy's deck, fixing his pool house AC, when my phone notifications blow up. Vincent's crypto investment crashed. Surprise, surprise. Shocker. Eden meets me for lunch, asks if I'm going to call my parents. I just shake my head. What's there to say? Told you so? That night, scrolling through my parents' desperate texts. They've lost everything. Savings, borrowed money, the works. They're being evicted next week. Dad's health is supposedly declining from stress. And somehow they've decided this is all my fault because I didn't stop them, because I didn't bail them out, because I wasn't a team player. The mental gymnastics would be impressive if they weren't so infuriating. And Vincent? Disappeared completely. Left some dramatic note about making things right and coming back when he fixes everything. Classic Vincent, running away but making it sound heroic. 3 weeks after the crypto disaster, my parents show up unannounced. I spot their car from my window as I'm getting ready for work. Perfect timing, as always. They follow me to my truck, practically ambushing me in the parking lot. Dad looks terrible. Face gaunt, clothes wrinkled. Mom's wearing her martyr face, the look how much I suffer expression designed to maximize guilt. Dad starts in immediately about my responsibility to family, while Mom nods along. When I don't offer money, Dad's tone shifts from guilt-tripping to outright accusation. Suddenly, I'm the villain in their story. The heartless son who abandoned his family in their time of need. They follow me all the way to my apartment door, getting louder, more desperate. I let them in, just to avoid making a scene for my neighbors. Big mistake. Inside, it gets worse. Dad's shouting about how I could have prevented all this if I just helped when they first asked, if I wasn't so jealous of Vincent, if I was a real son. Mom's crying those manipulative tears that never quite reach her eyes. You could have prevented this. Dad yells, jabbing a finger at me. We're about to be homeless, because you couldn't set aside your petty jealousy. Jealousy? I laugh. That's rich. 28 years of treating me like secondary family, and now I'm supposed to bail you out. We gave you everything. Mom sobs. A roof over your head. Food. You gave Vincent everything, I shot back. I got the leftovers. Dad's face goes red. That's not true. We supported your little career. My little career. The one that has me debt-free while they're begging for handouts. Then Mom drops the bombshell about Dad's heart condition. First I've heard of it. Conveniently timed for maximum guilt. I ask when he was diagnosed. They exchange that quick glance. That always means they're lying. When exactly was this heart condition diagnosed, Dad? The doctor said. He stammers. Which doctor? When? That's when I've had enough. I tell them exactly what I think about their parenting, their golden child worship, and their financial decisions. I tell them they made their choice when they bet everything on Vincent and his lies, again and again. They're on their own. Their shocked faces almost make me waver. Almost. I hold my ground as they gather their things and leave. Mom's parting shot about me being no son of hers doesn't hurt like she thinks it will. It just confirms what I've always known. I change my number the next day, install a security camera, warn my building manager about them. For the first time, I don't feel guilty about cutting contact. Bob thinks I'm being too harsh with my parents. His family's tight. He can't imagine cutting them off. Easy perspective when your family actually gives a darn about you. Just meet them for coffee, he suggests while we're restocking the van. Neutral ground, public place. They can't make a scene. Clearly, he's never seen my mother's public meltdowns. The woman could win an Oscar. A week later, I get a certified letter from my dad. Skim it. More guilt-tripping, vague health concerns. And finally, the real point, they need $5,000 for first and last month's rent on a new place. Return to sender, unopened. Work keeps me busy, thankfully. Eden's been dropping hints about moving in officially. Makes sense. She's here most nights anyway. We start looking at bigger apartments, maybe even houses. Never thought I'd be in a position to buy property, but HVAC pays better than my family ever acknowledged. I get a weird call from my aunt, Mom's sister. She's fed up with my parents staying with her. Apparently, they've turned her guest room into command central for Operation Guilt Killian, with a spreadsheet of manipulation tactics and everything. My aunt thinks it's ridiculous, hence the call. Always liked her. 6 weeks after the crypto collapse, I get a call from an unknown number. It's Vincent, calling from Arizona of all places. Claims he's working construction, if you can believe it. The golden child, laying bricks and pouring concrete. Karma is a beautiful thing sometimes. He says the construction work is humbling and he's learning the value of honest labor. I wanted to laugh at the irony, but honestly just felt tired of the whole situation. I remember Vincent mocking my career choice for years. Manual labor is for people who can't think for a living, he once said at Thanksgiving dinner. Now he's lugging bricks in the Arizona heat. Funny how life works out. Eden thinks his construction story is nonsense. People like him don't change that fundamentally, she says. She might be right, but the mental image of Vincent with a hard hat and blisters is too satisfying to question. Life settles into a rhythm without my family drama. Work, home, Eden, occasional beers with Bob. It's peaceful. I start thinking about the future in a way I never could before, career growth, relationship goals, maybe even my own business someday. Then, just when things are calm, my doorbell rings one Tuesday evening. It's Vincent, in person this time, looking even worse than before, if that's possible. He stands in my doorway, looking like absolute hell. Thinner, older, none of that cocky swagger left. Eden gives me a look and heads to the kitchen to give us space. I let Vincent in. He shuffles around awkwardly, eyes taking in our apartment. Nothing fancy, but comfortable and paid for. He looks like a ghost of himself. Worn jeans, faded t-shirt, thinning hair with some gray in it. Hard to believe this is the same guy who once made fun of my Target clearance rack wardrobe. He launches into his Arizona construction story. Claims he's been hauling concrete and installing drywall for minimum wage. Says his foreman's a hard ass who makes him redo everything 3 times. Describes blisters, sunburns, and exhaustion in vivid detail. You should see my hands, he says, shoving his palms in my face. I've got calluses on my calluses. Wow, I reply dryly. You want a medal for doing what millions of people do every day? Should I throw a parade because you discovered manual labor exists? Bet you never thought you'd see me doing construction, huh? He asks with a self-deprecating laugh. Actually, I reply, I never thought about you at all. His face falls just enough to be satisfying. I can't help but enjoy the irony. The same guy who once said, HVAC is for people who couldn't hack it in the real world, is now learning just how hard physical work actually is. I remember sophomore year of high school when Vincent told everyone my HVAC career goal was because I wasn't smart enough for college. Now, Mr. Stanford dropout is discovering that physical labor isn't the easy option he thought it was. He gets to the real point eventually. Parents are worse off than ever. My aunt kicked them out. Dad's health actually is deteriorating, heart problems from stress. They're living in some sketchy motel, barely making rent from Dad's disability checks. I feel that familiar twinge of guilt, then remember all the years of being treated like the family failure. I remember Dad laughing when I explained how certification works in HVAC. So, they give you a gold star for changing filters correctly? He'd never have dared say that to Vincent about coding. Vincent claims he's sending what little he makes to them, but it's not enough. Says they asked him to talk to me because they're desperate. No surprise there. They've always used Vincent as their ambassador when they wanted something. They don't know I'm here, he admits, staring at the floor. I had to see for myself if you were doing okay. Right. Because you've always been so concerned about my well-being. Definitely not because you need something and to ask for money, I add flatly. He winces. Not directly. I mean, they need help, but I'm not just here for that. Aren't you, though? The look on his face is priceless, like I've gone off script from whatever conversation he rehearsed on the way over. The conversation shifts when Vincent admits something unexpected. Says he was always jealous of me. Claims I had something real. Actual skills, a clear path, confidence in my abilities, while he was faking everything. Terrified of being exposed as a fraud. Eden brings drinks, stays for a few minutes to assess the situation, then tactfully disappears to take a shower. Vincent watches her leave, comments on how nice she seems. At least he gets that right. He makes his pitch, not asking me to forgive them or him, just to help our parents with a place to stay. Says they've changed, that losing everything has humbled them. They talk about you differently now, he says. Dad, especially. He mentions your job like it's something to be proud of. Amazing how bankruptcy suddenly makes my career respectable. Financial rock bottom is one heck of a perspective shifter. That's convenient timing, I say. Years of mockery, then suddenly I'm worth respecting when they need cash. Vincent sighs. I deserve that. We all do. But they're still our parents. Biology doesn't entitle them to anything, I tell him. I'll think about it. It's all I can offer right now. He accepts this, looking relieved not to get an outright no. Hands me their motel info and his new number before leaving. I spend the week thinking about it. Meanwhile, work keeps me grounded. Bob's got his own drama. Baby has colic. No one's sleeping. He shows up with his shirt on inside out. Doesn't notice until lunchtime. Still says it's worth it, though. Hardest job I've ever loved, he claims through a massive yawn. Eden's been researching resources for seniors in crisis. Doesn't push me either way. Just provides information. Whatever you decide, she says. Do it on your terms, not theirs. Smart woman. So, I make my decision a week later. I don't call Vincent or my parents. Instead, I contact a social worker in their area, explain the situation, arrange assistance with housing applications, medical resources for Dad, job placement services for Mom. I pay 3 months rent on a basic apartment near the hospital. What I don't do? Give them my address or invite them back into my life. Some bridges stay burned, and that's fine. Vincent texts his thanks, surprisingly humble. I reply simply, did it my way this time. They need to stand on their own feet. Life moves forward. Eden and I get engaged. Nothing fancy, just dinner at her favorite restaurant and a simple ring I saved for. She cries happy tears. Says yes immediately. Her family's thrilled. They actually like me. Weird concept. The big change comes when my boss retires. Offers to sell me his client list and equipment at a reasonable price. Terrifying prospect, but exciting too. Eden crunches the numbers. Says it makes financial sense. I take the plunge and start Coalfront Solutions. First few months of business ownership are a nightmare, but slowly things improve. I land a major contract with an office complex. Hire 3 solid techs who actually show up on time and know what they're doing. Bob comes to work for me, bringing his expertise in client relationships. Business starts to stabilize. Funniest HVAC call of my career happens during this time. Get an emergency request from a fancy country club, their systems down during a major event. Arrive to find Vincent there, wearing a catering staff uniform, sweating bullets in the kitchen heat. He doesn't see me. I just watch him for a minute, carrying trays, being ordered around by the chef. From tech startup golden boy to server in 6 months. I fix the AC, leave without saying hello. Some things are better left unacknowledged. Parents are doing okay, from what I hear. Dad's health improved once they had stable housing. Mom found work at a library. They send birthday cards through Eden's email. She's my unofficial family buffer now. We bought a house near Eden's school. 3 bedrooms, decent yard, good neighborhood. As I'm installing a top-of-the-line HVAC system, perks of the job, I can't help thinking about how far I've come. Vincent's still in Arizona doing construction. Seems to have made peace with it. Sends occasional updates. Always respectful of my boundaries. Last message included a photo of him and his crew finishing a wall. The guy actually looked proud of physical labor. Never thought I'd see the day. Maybe someday we'll have a real relationship again. Maybe not. For the first time in my life, that decision is entirely mine to make. And that as the real victory here, not watching them fall, but finally standing on my own. Some might call it petty to enjoy the reversal of fortunes. Maybe it is. But after being the family joke for so long, it's pretty darn satisfying to be the only one with my act together. The HVAC guy they mocked now runs a growing business, while the tech genius who couldn't shut up about his stock options sweats his ass off hauling concrete for some foreman who treats him like dirt. Life's weird like that. Sometimes the best revenge isn't some dramatic showdown. It's just living well and letting reality do the work for you.